Hey y'all, welcome back to Medler's Toy Box, and today we're going to be taking a look at a very fun project that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks, and this is how not to make ambient music. So I was going to start this off with kind of a jokey thing where I was going to try to make ambient music the completely wrong way and pass it off as a joke, but I'm not good at writing comedy. So we're just going to kind of take a look at my thought process and go from there. So here was the joke script that I had, where it was like the real steps on how to make ambient music, and then I had these fakey little steps. We're actually still going to follow this. I'm just going to be honest about my process instead. So I'll be reading off of this as we go, but let's go ahead and enter into our DAW here. So as always, we're popping into Waveform 13. This is the free edition by Traction. Really enjoy the software, mainly because it's free. But so what I like to do in setting up these weird projects is I like to take the opposite stance. So let's set our project to something unreasonably fast for ambient. Let's go with 184 on our BPM. So let's set up 3 little 8-bar loops. That seems decent. And then, long instruments, slow MIDI. Let's just make a bop with some nice drums, a cool beat, and we'll leave After Effects until later. We don't really need. We'll just add some random sounds to make something great and turn up the volume. That'll sound like ambient music, right? That didn't sound very ambient at all. Let's take a look at the steps here. Ooh. Oh, there's some scrolling. Let's scroll. Oh. Realize you made a fire beat loop that has nothing to do with ambient music and panic. I guess that's why these steps were laid out like they were. By the way, quick shout out in the middle of the video. Thank you so much to Chris, aka Signs of Life here on YouTube. I will be linking him down in the description. He was a huge inspiration for this project, and actually where I collected these steps. He doesn't really have steps like that in his ambience tutorials, but I kind of generalized what the steps would be based upon how he teaches. His style of ambience is really nice, really cool. It wasn't necessarily hitting my style of ambience, so I thought I'd take a crack at it. And I want to show you guys a couple of tools to add to your musical library and show you that ambient music especially is one thing that anyone can play around with. So one I love that the community discovered is called Paul Stretch. Now, what I love about Paul Stretch is it's simple, takes a little bit of learning to get a hold of, but it can make some wonderful sounds. Those of you in the ambient community probably have already seen this tool, but I want to show you how it can be utilized. So before I started recording, I did render out these individual sound files to make it a little bit easier for us to kind of see what's going on to each of these. So real quick, I'm going to play this first loop again. Okay, so upbeat, really fast, kind of has that traditional loop beat going, and we want to slow that down into ambience. So let's pop into here. Oh, exported. There it is. All right, so here's part 1 loop, and let's turn Paul Stretch off just so we can hear it through here, so you guys can hear the same file. Helps to unmute the audio track. Okay, and as you guys heard, we got random sounds going. There's a lot of different stuff. So What pause stretch does is it basically stretches the amount. So this is the stretch amount. So a stretch amount of 2 is it's basically going to delay and stretch the song to play double over. So every note is going to get a second note. So every ba is going to go ba in a very slow pattern. It's going to kind of echo itself. So pause stretch is very good at making long reverby type of delays and echoes all within itself. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this a little bit higher. We're going to go to 20. The FFT, I forget what FFT stands for, but it's basically how much it's melding everything together. The closer to 0 that you are, the more staccato a lot of the sounds and delays will be, and the closer to 1 is a lot more washed out. I really like it at a 0.6. I think that really keeps everything in a nice pressure. So a couple of other things you can mess around with. I'm not going to mess around with harmonics or tone. A couple of things I am going to turn on is we're going to give this a half of a compression here. We're also going to give it a high and low pass filter, because that really helps get a lot of those noisy artifacts. You might want to raise your filter if you have artifacts and follies that are being cut out that you don't want cut out. And then this cool little thing down here, the binaural beats. This is basically just a panner, and that's all really binaural beats do, is you can set up a quick pan to go between speakers. I'm not going to do that right now. As you can see down here, it will show you all of the filters that you are turning on when you're at this track, and how long you can set the duration for it, and if it loops. So now that we have all of this slowed down, what does it sound like now? So totally different vibe, and it immediately creates this nice ambience to it with no extra effort. What's really cool is we generated a 10-second audio clip, and with these current settings, up here you can see the output length. It would generate a 3.5-minute clip for us. And that's really freaking cool. Now to show you like that process, I was going to draw them out and then mix them together into a full ambience track, but you kind of see the point here. What you would do is you would go up here, grab each of your stuff, set the settings to where you want for each part, and then this little render button, you just go ahead and click render, and you can poop it out in whatever folders that you want. I'm sure I don't need to explain that to you guys. You just use the 3 dots to go browse and find the folder you want to put it in. I've actually made a specific pause stretch in my music folder so that I can find things easily, and then you just click render. Another thing is settings here. There's not really much to change from the default. The only thing I would look at changing, did not mean to press that, I apologize, is the recording file format. I usually use WAV or OGG depending. FLAC is not something I am 100% familiar with, but it seems to be more common in the music community. So if you're having problems with getting your files to go in and out of your DAW and make things easier, that is one setting that I have found that if I change it to WAV, then I just get a little bit better of results. I understand that WAV is a larger type of file and it can cause some problems. So that's just something to look for if pause stretch is not doing what you want it to when it renders in and out. Now let's kind of take a look at more of what Chris is more showing on his Signs of Life channel with his ambience, and how you can still make a good ambient track. We're still going with a completely unconventional route. So in my second little thing here, we just have a blank MIDI track going just for timekeeping purposes. I have this set to 5 minutes. And as you can see, we've slowed down our DAW a little bit. We're kind of coming into a more traditional approach. So we're going to just grab our favorite sequencer, and I've set Harmony Bloom to this nice happy preset. It has a bunch of notes, and that is going to be key for us to get a large kind of atmosphere without doing a lot of work. So as you can see, we have one string, set to a decently slow pace. And we can also set the probabilities of this to make it change over time as we need to, and mess around with various individual plugin settings. Now, you don't have to use Harmony Bloom. This is just one of my favorite sequencers to use when making unconventional tracks, because that's kind of how I started with the How Not series, was with Harmony Bloom. So I like peppering it in once in a while. After which you can choose just about any instrument you want for this unconventional method, because it really doesn't matter. So I just have this nice lo-fi little piano. And as you can hear, it makes repeating noises. And this makes it a lot easier for all of our things to keep going. And as you can hear, we have a lot of After Effects. And this is one of the coolest tools other than Paul Stretch I have found for creating randomized ambient music that can evolve itself. So cool thing about Emergence, similar to Paul Stretch, a granulator basically, where it chops up the audio coming in and moves it around in various patterns. And then you can control all of these nodes. I'm going to turn some of these off so we can take a look kind of more what it's doing. So a sound will play and it will come in and play. And you can't see it because the playback line is right behind the actual buffer line, but it has a chance to hit that sound again and again and again. And every time it does, I'm gonna just get a couple notes. You'll watch it, it reassociates and granulates on the buffers. Now, if we give it a continuous note, let's give it something lower. You can hear that now, because it had the multiple sounds of the dings and the dong, it fights against each other, and slowly the waveforms actually cancel each other out, even though I was still playing a note that's arpeggiated. So what we do to get by this is we add a nice reverb, such as Valhalla's Supermassive. By the way, guys, other than Harmony Bloom, so far, all of these apps I've been talking about are completely free, and Harmony Bloom is still an affordable plugin. It is only $30. Link in the description to go grab it off of Mauro Nieto's website. He has a bunch of cool apps that I will be featuring throughout all of my projects. Speaking of which, he made this great little panner with the help of, I cannot pronounce this, Evgen Ivanchenko. Please, please, please don't be angry. I do not speak anything other than English and light Spanish. But Mario and his partner here have made a wonderful app, and it randomly swifts the pan back and forth, adding more to that evolution. So now that we have all that set up, all I did at the end was give a limiter, because again, we don't want ambient music to be too loud. So though this is still unconventional, this is more along the lines of what Signs of Life is kind of teaching on his channels, combining these unconventional tools in a way that prints out some ambient music. So let's kind of see how this is sounding. All right. And then we can add layers to it by adding multiple buffer streams. So as you can hear, it pans it around. It also has its own LFOs and macros similar to Vital, which I've used on the channel before. Great little synth plugin. But all of these can hook to all of these controls individually. There's also macros and randomizers. I love Emergence. But as you can hear, depending on what you're putting into it, it doesn't necessarily do a great job of keeping it ambient until you take down the dry, move up our buffers and our granulator. Now let's clear our dinging noises just a little bit. Now we're still going to get some dings. But now that we've slowed this down and made it a little bit more tonal, we get a little more of that ambience. But this is still a little too fast, and it still has a couple of problems with control. So this is great for one layer of ambience, and Chris, aka Signs of Life, really shows that on his channel a lot. And I really admire that, where he takes this, and this is one layer. But I, as a person of unconventional means, wanted it so that I could hit play and not have to do anything else. Now, I could, make multiple layers on multiple tracks, set all of this up, mix it properly. That sounds like a lot of work. So let's go the other route and do it the wrong way again. This is the plethora of my challenges. This is known as my ambient machine. This is one of my proudest projects so far. It is one thing that I've been trying to build ever since I started downloading DAWs and experimenting with music plugins. Is I wanted something where I could just come in here, open my DAW, mess around with a couple of these settings, hit render, and it would make a completely new track without any input from me other than the initial settings. And we've created that. So we're down here at, we're actually going to change this to 46 BPM. All right, so actually real quick, I realized that I was testing something before I saved this. So let me go ahead and grab a different plugin here. We're going to grab one of my favorites, and that is Easy Strings. So what this LFO is doing is actually changing our instrument from cello to viola to violin, so we get a plethora scope of string instruments. I have a similar thing going to this nice quiet piano by Quiet Music. So the primary driver is going to be the free app Stokus. What this does greatly is you can program in chords and it will pick a random note of these chords and you can set those lengths. So what I've done with this is I've just set up long chord progressions that it can randomly pick through. Sometimes it will change the melody, other times it will just play these long notes. And I have that set out on output channel 2 so that it comes into the atmosphere circuit as I labeled up here. The second thing, I have a melody circuit. So generally, like I said before in the real steps of how to make ambient music, is you really don't want something that can distract the listener too much. My definition of ambient music is very close to the original propagator of it, Brian Eno, which is ambient music should be as ignorable as it is interesting. So when you tune into it, it should be interesting to listen to, but you should easily be able to tune out of it. So what I've set here is all of these notes could play, but there's a higher chance that they won't. And that really gives the randomness effect of having a slight melody in the background, but not really giving a sense of rhythm or beat. And instead of having a bunch of drums or anything, we just have nice constant rain going in the background with Harmony Bloom trailing it away with a little LFO that's controlling an extra little sound of thunder inside our Rainmaker. But let me quick explain what's going on here from Stokus. So right now we have the MIDI channels split. One is going to the atmosphere circuit, one is going to the melody circuit, and then we have a completely other Foley circuit. This is great because we can set it up in multiple different ways. We can switch out these instruments. We can come in here. We can change the instrument settings directly. As you can see, we have Emergence and Valhalla in here, Pan Flow again. Anywhere you see filters is just a low pass filter, and all of these limiters are to keep everything in a nice ambient range. After I have all that set up on my master, all I have is some monitoring little things. So I have a dynamic EQ that again is controlling some various frequencies in my track that I want to keep. And then I have this great little tool called Span. Span is a spectral analyzer tool that shows you all of your frequencies. But the greatest thing that I like about it is it has different metering sets. One thing I love is the fact that the internet was so quick to just point out exactly the range that comfortable ambient music is listened to, which on the LUFS-ML scale is between -16 decibels and -24 decibels. So when I play my track out, I try to make sure that the limiters have kept it in that range. Now, I like to go a little bit higher, especially when the melody parts kind of come in, to provide that little bit of ding up to a 12. It's not enough to really call your attention, but it's enough to be there. Now, as you can hear, we've created this thing where it's a really ugly waveform. And honestly, most people would see this and say, well, that's probably not ambient or smooth at all. But as you can hear, because we're using this EQ and it's automatically compressing and threshold, we can have this crazy waveform that's not smooth, but we still get this nice ambient style music. And because our Foley in our ambient machine for our Rainmaker is on a completely separate little track here, when we go in here and let's turn on Harmony Bloom and start our rain, it is completely separate from everything else. So you get that constant rain in the background. If you want rain, you can also set this up to a Foley of like train tracks or bird sounds or wind. So that being on the Foley circuit. Now, this is super complicated. It took me a while. You guys probably looking at the screen could build it yourselves. Awesome sauce. I want you to. But in case you don't want to put in all that effort, let me show you a really simple setup for the ambient machine that anyone can build in pretty much any DAW. So real quick, I am going to follow my process a little bit. 184 on the BPM. Now, next, grab your favorite sequencer. I am going to grab Stochist for this just because I enjoy its abilities for this a little bit more than any other sequencer I have. So, grab your sequencer. And then grab one of your favorite instruments. I am actually going to grab, since we're only using one instance of it, where are you? We're going to grab Vital. Okay, and then we're going to grab Emergence. Set up Emergence right after that. Next, Valhalla Supermassive for a nice reverb. And literally all you need past that is I would put Span in front of that to monitor. All right, so all 5 of these plugins are 100% free, and you can make a mini circuit with these 5 plugins that create absolutely wonderful ambient noises. So to just show you real quick, we're gonna come in here. I'm gonna grab just a major scale. Let's go for something weird. Let's go for Locrian. Let's come to our chords. Let's grab this guy. We're going to start at our C3, and then we're going to extend that out. Then we're going to chord progress up, extend that out, chord progress up, extend that out, and then drop back down. Now, this does not look like a very good chord progression. Don't worry, it doesn't need to be. That's the point of this, is we're unconventional and we're just throwing random stuff in and making it cool. So we're going to set everything up to play really long, join each other. We're going to have length velocity vary slightly. So right now, let's come into Vital next, and we are going to grab something that I know will work almost 100% of the time, and this is my theremin sound from Ziller. So that's where we're going with that. Now, the reason I'm not playing anything is this is how quick you can get this set up. All right, so we're playing fast here. Let's set the feedback a little higher. Grant the buffer size to slow that down. Let's reduce our grains to reduce lag. Let's go for a nice 30. Turn down our dry volume. Turn up our buffer volume and give our granulator volume a little bit. Keep our streams going. What you're going to want to do is slow all of them down to just about 0. So they're all barely moving. You can see that. And we're going to drop 2 to move backwards. And those ones, we're actually going to take the pitches And you're just going to set up a simple octave choir. All right. Okay, and then in Valhalla, what you're going to want is something with a good amount of reverb. My go-to is in Z Massive Space is the Place. Grab that. Please ignore that Grim Shadow is playing over on VTube and Goose Goose Duck. All right, so let's give this a quick play and see what it is. Wow, that is cool. All right, let's come into span, and as we can see, we are capping out on a lot of stuff, and we are going to clear that. Panic out our sound real quick. All right, so we know we are way too loud, so let's grab a limiter real quick. I'm just gonna grab the default one from waveform here. We're gonna pop that in right before span, and we want to put that ceiling at -16. So that is going to be our ceiling. Generally, I actually go a little bit lower for sounds that are layering on top of each other. So I will go to -20 dB. And now that we have that, we can come over here, set our scale properly, and then hit play. And now it's just spreading that sound out and creating... We accidentally made a very creepy thing, but a theremin is usually a creepy instrument. So this would be like that nice spooky ambient type of music, that dark, gritty type of stuff. But we can make some pretty cool things. So without stopping emergence this time, I'm gonna stop my DAW so we don't crash. We're gonna open Vital. And again, while that's still playing, we're gonna grab one of my favorite little things. This is Dark Mountain Pass, made by me. One of my favorite soundscapes that I've made. As you can see, it's pretty involved, so hopefully we don't crash. But now, without stopping anything, we're gonna layer it in. And you start hearing it come in. So what's really cool about this is, especially with Vital, you guys can get multi-layer sounds as you're recording without having to add any more layers, without having to add any more instances. Well, there's nothing really much more I have to explain, so just a quick recap is, if you're stuck in the stage of making loops and such, you can use a tool like Paul Stretch to take those loops and make them absolutely glorious and massive. If you are following Chris, play around with what we showed you in the middle, and kind of at the end here is finding the little things that work for free, experiment around, layer them together. So if you want a quick ambient machine, or if you want to follow Chris's style by creating individual layers and having them mixed and layered, perfectly fine. Again, go check out his channel. It's where I learned most of this stuff. And lastly is, if you really want to dive into making a completely automated ambient system, you can spend weeks, if not a little over a month, collecting a plethora of free plugins, wiring them in unconventional routing methods, and getting them to do things they were never meant to do, such as make ambient music at the press of a button. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you learned something, pop down in the comments, let me know. If you want to ask a question, please do. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and thank you so much.
Thank you for following this tutorial. Feel free to share your responses or ask questions in the comments. We hope we've inspired you to explore more creative projects and that you enjoyed your time with us. Have a wonderful day.